Watchman Thomas Grant found a dirty, soot-covered painting in an old gilded, cracked frame at the dump. He thought he could sell the frame for pennies, but when he started cleaning it, he was stunned. The night turned out cold, November, wind from the bay, fine rain mixed with snow. Thomas sat in the watchman's hut, wrapped in an old pea coat. His shift lasted until 6 in the morning, still 7 hours left. 16 years at this dump, 16 years among garbage, rats, stench. He had gotten used to it, even grown fond of it in his own way. Quiet, peaceful, no one prying into his soul. In his past life, everything was different. The Hermitage, white gloves, great canvases. Restorer, sounded proud. He restored masterpieces, brought back colors, revived history. Then the 90s, no salary, wife left, apartment seized for debts. He drank hard, hit rock bottom, lost his job, lost himself. The dump picked him up, gave him a roof, a piece of bread, gave him time to think, to sober up. 66 years old. The sum of his life. A hut on a garbage landfill. But alive, sober for 10 years already, that's something. At 3 in the morning, a garbage truck arrived, a late run from St. Petersburg, clearing out a resettled house on Lidiny. They dumped old furniture, boxes, rags. Thomas went out to look, habit. Sometimes useful things turned up in the trash. Books, dishes, tools. Sell for pennies, but still. The driver dumped the pile and left. Thomas walked around, shone his flashlight, and froze. A corner stuck out, gilded, familiar, a picture frame. His heart skipped a beat. Professional memory doesn't die. He approached, pulled, heavy, large. Pulled it out, a painting, oil on canvas, dirty, sooty, but intact. The frame antique, carved, cracked but holding shape. Such things cost several thousand in antique shops. The painting, in the flashlight's light, hard to make out. Something dark, murky, a landscape perhaps. Okay, Thomas said aloud, I'll take it, we'll see. In the hut, he laid out the find on the table. The painting about the size of a newspaper, roughly 60 by 50 centimeters. Canvas old, dense. Frame wood, gilding, handmade, 18th century by eye, maybe 19th. Thomas got a rag, dampened it with water, carefully wiped a corner. From under the layer of dirt, colors emerged. Greens, browns. Landscape for sure, trees, sky. But something off. Brushstrokes rough, uncertain, amateur work. And the frame museum quality, expensive. Why such a frame for a cheap picture? Doesn't add up. And the thickness, the canvas too dense for such simple work, as if several layers. Professional intuition stirred. Well, Thomas got his old loupe from the Hermitage, looked at the edge where it met the frame, and saw under the green paint another color. Blue, delicate, noble. Overpainted. The painting overpainted over another. His heart beat faster. The next 2 hours, Thomas worked carefully, slowly, as taught 30 years ago. Cotton swab, weak solvent, gentle, removing the top layer millimeter by millimeter. Hands remembered, even after 16 years at the dump, they remembered. First, a corner emerged. Blue fabric, folds, dress, shawl. Then a woman's hand, elegant, thin fingers with a ring. Then the face. Thomas set down the swab, looked, not breathing. A young woman, beautiful, dark eyes, light smile, hair tucked under a blue ribbon. Portrait, formal, masterful style recognizable. Soft transitions, pearl tones, airiness, lightness. 18th century, Russian school. Thomas felt his hands go cold. Can't be. Took the loupe, leaned over the corner, there should be a signature if it's what he thinks. Wiped more carefully, more slowly, and saw letters, antique, ornate, F. Rokotov. Thomas sat on the floor, leaned against the wall, closed his eyes. Rokotov, Fyodor Stepanovich Rokotov, great Russian portraitist, court painter to Catherine II. His paintings in the Tretiakov, the Russian Museum, the Hermitage. His portraits worth millions, tens of millions. And here, at the dump, in a hut with a former alcoholic. Delusion, dream, hallucination. Thomas opened his eyes, looked at the painting. The woman looked at him through centuries, smiled mysteriously, softly. Not a dream, not delusion. Truth. In the morning, he didn't sleep, sat looking at the painting, thinking what to do, who to call. Sell it? Find a fence, hawk it for pennies, no one would know where it came from. No, can't, not that kind of man. Turn it in to the state, get a reward if they give 1% of value. Or first figure out where this painting came from, why at the dump, why overpainted. Professional curiosity stronger than greed. At 9 in the morning, called Robert. Robert Simmons, former colleague, art expert, works at the Russian Museum, painting department, 18th century. Haven't seen each other in 20 years, but number saved. Hello, Bob, it's Grant, Thomas Grant. Pause. Tom Grant? You're alive? Alive, Bob. I need help. What happened? I found something. Need an expert. Can you come? Where? To the suburbs, to the dump? To what dump? The garbage one. I work here, watchman. Long story. Pause. Tom, you okay? Okay, sober 10 years, work as watchman. That's not important. Important what I found. What did you find? Come, I'll show. Just don't tell anyone yet. Robert arrived by lunch. Gray, portly, aged in 20 years, but eyes the same, lively, keen. Got out of the car, looked around, wrinkled his nose at the smell. Lord, Tom, how do you live here? Got used to it. Come on. Went into the hut. Robert saw the painting and froze. What's this? Look. Thomas removed the cloth he had covered it with. The woman in blue looked at them, smiled through centuries. Robert approached slowly, carefully, got glasses, leaned in, looked long, silently. Then straightened up, face white as paper. Tom, he said hoarsely, this is Rokotov. Genuine. I think so. But needs expertise. Where from? From the dump. Brought last night from the resettled house. Robert sat on a stool heavily, as if his legs gave out. This is impossible. I thought so too. Rokotov at the dump, overpainted. Someone smeared a landscape over it, long ago by the look. Why? That's a good question. Robert examined the painting for an hour. Loupe, flashlight, some tools from his bag, muttering to himself. Thomas waited, didn't interfere. Finally, Robert set down the loupe, looked at Thomas with a strange gaze. Tom, do you understand what this is? Rokotov, I understand. No, you don't. Robert got his phone, scrolled. Look. On the screen, a photo. The same painting, the same woman in blue. Portrait of an unknown woman in blue, Robert read. Fyodor Rokotov, 1760s. Considered lost since 1942. Lost? Yes, disappeared during the siege. Officially perished in a bombing. In what bombing? Museum on Vasilyevsky Island, destroyed in January 42. Part of the collection destroyed. Thomas looked at the painting, at the woman who smiled 80 years ago and smiled now. But she didn't perish. No, as you see, she didn't. They stole her. Who? That's what we have to find out. Robert left in the evening, took photos, paint samples, promised to check databases, search archives. Tell no one, he warned Thomas. Until we figure it out. Won't tell. But Tom, do you understand how much this is worth? I understand. 50 million, maybe more. At auction up to 100. You don't need money. Robert gestured around the hut. You live at the dump. I need the truth. Where the painting came from, who stole it, why here? Why do you need that? Thomas paused. I feel it's important. Don't know why, but important. Robert looked at him long, attentively. Okay. I'll call when I know something. That night, Thomas didn't sleep, sat in the hut looking at the painting. The woman in blue, who was she? Whose wife, whose daughter? What fate? Rokotov painted her 250 years ago. She's long dead and dust, but the portrait lives, looks at the world with the same eyes. Art conquers time. Thomas remembered his great-grandfather, Michael Grant, museum director, died in the siege-saving paintings. Family proud, father told stories from childhood. Great-grandfather a hero, gave life for art. Thomas went into restoration because of that, to continue the work, to be worthy. Then broke, betrayed the memory, drank, sank. Maybe this a chance to atone, to return. The woman in blue smiled, as if she knew the answer. 3 days later, call from Robert. Tom, there's news. Can you come to St. Petersburg? I can. What did you find? A lot. And you won't like it. Why? Come, we'll talk in person. To St. Petersburg the next day. Train, metro. City foreign, forgotten, 15 years not been. Russian Museum on Art Square, majestic building, columns, lions. Robert waited at the service entrance. Come to my office. Office small, piled with books, walls with reproductions, photos. Robert closed the door, sat at the desk, got a folder. Ready? Ready. Then listen. Painting genuine, I confirmed. Expertise not official but reliable. Good. Now the history. Museum on Vasilyevsky, as I said, small, private collection before the revolution, nationalized in the 20s. Who was the director? Robert hesitated. In 41, Michael Grant. Thomas froze. What? Grant? Your namesake. Or. Robert looked at him. Or not namesake. My great-grandfather. Thomas's voice hoarse, dry. His name was Michael Grant. Died in the siege. Died in January 42, in the bombing. Yes, that's what they said. Robert was silent, looked at Thomas with a strange expression. What? Asked Thomas. What did you find? I found a guard who worked at the museum with your great-grandfather. Who? Robert opened the folder, got an old black and white photo. Alexander Fletcher, guard, then deputy director. Survived the siege, made a career after the war, art historian, professor, died in 1998. Thomas looked at the photo. Young man, about 30, narrow face, attentive eyes. And what? The painting brought from the house on Lidiny, right? Yes. That house belonged to the Fletcher family. Last owner Peter Alexander Fletcher, grandson of the guard, died last year. Thomas began to understand. You mean? I mean the painting hung in the Fletchers' apartment for 80 years, overpainted, hidden. And my great-grandfather died the same night the painting disappeared. Silence, heavy, pressing. Coincidence? Asked Thomas. I don't think so, answered Robert. Not at all. The next days Thomas spent in St. Petersburg, stayed with Robert, who offered a room. Couldn't return to the dump until he knew the truth. Hid the painting in the museum storage, unofficial, no papers. Robert risked, but agreed. Until we figure it out. Tell no one, warned Thomas. Understood, but can't hide long. I'll try fast. Started with archives. Central State Archive of St. Petersburg, gray building, endless corridors, smell of old paper. Thomas requested documents on the museum on Vasilyevsky, Fund 1942, siege period. Waited 3 days, leafed through 2 more, and found. Act on the building's destruction. January 14, 1942, due to artillery shelling, eastern part destroyed, museum director Michael Grant killed, part of collection lost. Signature, A. Fletcher, acting director. Thomas looked at the yellowed, fragile paper. Fletcher wrote the act himself, recorded the director's death. Convenient. Next, inventory of lost. List of paintings perished in shelling, 23 items, among them portrait of an unknown woman in blue, F. Rokotov, 18th century. Thomas photographed the page, noted to himself. Painting officially perished, but in fact hung in Fletcher's apartment for 80 years. Stolen, written off to war. But not proof yet. Maybe Fletcher found the painting later in the ruins, saved it, kept it. Weak version, but possible. Need more, need witnesses. Robert helped with contacts, found a historian, siege specialist, Henry Paulson, 82 years, worked in archives all life. Met at his apartment on Petrograd side. Old man dry, lively, with keen gaze. Museum on Vasilyevsky? He repeated. Remember, small, insignificant, but collection decent. Do you know anything about Director Grant? Grant, Paulson thought. Died in bombing, yes. Officially, yes. And unofficially? Thomas told about the painting, about Fletcher, about his suspicions. Paulson listened without interrupting, then stood, went to the cabinet. I have something, might help. Got a thick folder tied with string. Siege diaries, collect all life, copies, extracts. And what's there? Record from a neighbor who lived near the museum. Paulson leafed pages, found, handed to Thomas. Handwriting small, trembling, pencil half erased. January 15, 1942. Night shelling, hit the museum. Morning saw them carrying out director's body. Strange, bomb fell in courtyard, but he lay inside, in storage, head smashed. They say beam collapsed, but I saw beams intact. Fletcher in charge, commanding, fussy, eyes darting. Thomas reread twice. She suspected. Looks like it. But who listened? Siege, hunger, death everywhere. One more corpse, what's the difference? And then? Then she died a month later, like many. Thomas returned to Robert late evening, sat in kitchen, drank tea. What do you think? Asked Robert. I think Fletcher killed my great-grandfather. Why? For the painting. Wanted to steal, great-grandfather caught him, killed, rode off to bombing. But evidence circumstantial. Neighbor's diary, logic of events. No direct. Then what? Thomas was silent, thought. Search further. There must be more. Next day, went to address bureau, found relatives of the neighbor who kept the diary. Granddaughter Helen Saunders, 67 years, lives on Okta, Old Khrushchevka. Called, arranged meeting. Helen Saunders, plump, good-natured, met with tea, cookies. You about Grandma and Irving? Yes, about her diaries. And what's there? Thomas explained briefly, no details. Research, museum history. Some things saved, I think on the mezzanine, Mom kept, I didn't touch. Can look? Yes, please. Mezzanine dusty, crammed with junk. Thomas sorted boxes, bundles, packets. Old things, old smells. And found. Tin cookie box, inside papers yellowed, fragile. Diary, real, original, not copy. Can take? Asked Thomas. I'll return. Take, just carefully. It's history. At Roberts, read all night. Diary of an Irving, September 1941 to February 42. Terrible pages. Hunger, cold, death, bread queues, corpses on streets. And entries about the museum. January 10th. Saw Director Grant, thin, exhausted, but eyes burning. Says saving paintings, hiding in basement, fears for collection. January 12th. Fletcher the guard strange, hanging around storage. Grant looks at him sideways. January 14th. Shelling at night, roar, explosions. Morning learned Grant died. January 15th. Was at museum, saw carrying body. Strange, head smashed but little blood, face calm, as if didn't expect blow. January 16th. Fletcher now in charge, fusses, commands, hauls something out of museum, crates, bundles. Says evacuation of valuables, but why at night? January 18th. Asked neighbor what Fletcher hauling. She doesn't know, but heard arguments between him and Grant shortly before shelling. Grant shouted. Thief, traitor. Thomas set down the diary, hands shaking. Thief, traitor. Great-grandfather knew, guessed Fletcher stealing, wanted to stop, and died. Not from bomb, from blow to head in storage among paintings. Fletcher killed, left among ruins, rode off to artillery. And lived 60 years with stolen painting on wall, with murder in soul. Enough for conclusion? Asked Thomas. Enough, answered Sparrow. Preparing documents. What conclusion? Michael Grant died not from artillery, killed by Alexander Fletcher while trying to prevent theft of cultural values. Officially? Officially. That's how we'll write in conclusion. Evening, Thomas sat in Robert's apartment, looked out window at St. Petersburg lights. City where great-grandfather born, where died by traitor's hand. How do you feel? Asked Robert. Don't know. Thomas shook head. Relief, bitterness, all at once. You're good, found the truth. By chance, found the painting at dump. By chance or not? Difference? Main thing, found. Thomas was silent, thought of great-grandfather, man he never saw. Hero, real hero, not because died under bombs, that would be accident, but because stood in thief's way, said no, paid with life. That's choice, that's courage. You know, said Thomas, I betrayed too. What? Profession, art. Drank, sank. 15 years at dump. That's not betrayal, that's life. Great-grandfather wouldn't approve. How do you know? I know. Thomas sighed. He gave life for painting, I threw mine for bottle. But returned, found painting, found truth. Maybe chance to fix. Maybe. Robert smiled. Even for sure. That night, Thomas didn't sleep, thought of future, first time in many years. Return to dump, live out among garbage? Or start anew? At 66, late? Early? Never late if there's why. Great-grandfather gave him why. Memory to preserve, art to serve. Investigative committee's conclusion came a month later, official, with stamps. Michael Grant, museum director, died January 14, 1942, from premeditated murder. Killer identified. Alexander Fletcher, museum guard. 80 years of lie, now truth. Thomas held document in hands, couldn't believe. It worked, really worked. Journalists swooped immediately. TV, papers, internet. Story loud, resonant. Rokotov masterpiece found at dump, 80-year-old murder solved. Thomas filmed, interviewed. He answered short, dry, didn't like attention. How do you feel? Feel justice, finally. What will you do with painting? Return to museum. Not mine. Your due reward, 25% of value. Millions. Don't need that money. Why? Because blood on it, great-grandfathers. Journalists didn't understand. Refuse millions, madness. Thomas didn't explain. What's the point? Money won't make him happy, won't return lost years, won't resurrect great-grandfather. But memory can be preserved for free. Robert tried to dissuade. Tom, don't be stupid, take at least part. No. You live at dump. What will you live on? Find work. Hands remember. At 66? At 66, not old age. Brain there, experience there. Manage. Robert looked at him with respect, incomprehension. You're strange man, Tom. What I am. But Thomas requested one thing. Memorial plaque on museum building, what's left of it? Building restored after war, now residential. But place the same. Thomas wrote application to administration, attached documents, investigation conclusion. Answer came 2 weeks later. Your request considered, decision positive. Memorial plaque will be installed. Ceremony set for January 14, exactly 82 years from day of death. Thomas prepared. Text, speech, words to say. Waited with impatience, with fear. But before ceremony, unexpected. Call from Sparrow, the investigator. Thomas Grant, there's news. What? Found Fletcher's heirs. What heirs? Grandson died childless. Grandson yes, but there was granddaughter, second son's daughter. Lives in Moscow. Thomas. And? She wants to meet you. Granddaughter named Marina Fletcher, 52 years, came from Moscow specially. Called, asked for meeting. Why? Asked Thomas. Want to talk? To explain? What to explain? Come, find out. Met in cafe on Nevsky. Marina tall, strict, dark hair, attentive eyes. Looked like grandfather in photos. Hello. Hello. Sat at table, ordered coffee, tea. Silence heavy, awkward. I read, said Marina finally. Read about painting, about your great-grandfather. And I want to apologize. Thomas didn't expect. For what? For grandfather, for what he did. You're not guilty. You weren't even born. I know. But his blood in me. Can't wash off. Marina told about family, about grandfather she remembered vaguely, died when she was 20. He was strange man, secretive, silent. Never talked about war. Never. Father asked. Shushed, changed topic. Paintings? Paintings he loved. Whole apartment in paintings. Said collection. New stolen? No, Marina shook head. Honestly no. Thought legal collection, inheritance. And then? Then he died. Collection sold gradually, in parts. Money spent. And the portrait, no one wanted to buy. Some murky landscape. So hung in Uncle Pete's apartment until ended up at dump. Yes, until dump. Marina got envelope, laid on table. This for you. What? Money. What could gather? Don't need. Need. Marina's voice firm, decisive. Grandfather stole painting, killed man. Can't atone, but at least partly compensate. How much here? 300,000. All I could. Thomas looked at envelope, not touching. 300,000 not much, but for him fortune. Take, refuse? Okay, he said finally. Take. But not for me. For who? For restoration of paintings grandfather didn't steal, that need help. Marina looked at him with surprise, respect. You're strange man. I've been told. Parted almost friendly. Marina promised to come to ceremony, see plaque. Want to know, she said. Want to remember, so not repeated. Won't repeat. How do you know? Because we remember. While we remember, won't repeat. Ceremony January 14th, cold, snow, weather like then 82 years ago. At house on Vasilyevsky, people gathered. Journalists, historians, officials. Robert with wife, Marina from Moscow, and Thomas in old coat with carnation bouquet. Plaque unveiled solemnly. Gray granite, gold letters. In this building in 1941-1942 was museum. Here January 14, 1942 died museum director Michael Grant defending collection from marauder. We remember. Cloth fell, plaque shone on wall. Thomas laid flowers, stood silent. Great-grandfather, we remember. Now all know. After ceremony, speeches. Officials, historians. Official words about feet, about memory. Thomas spoke too, short, simple. My great-grandfather died defending art. 80 years thought from bomb, turned out from traitor. But that doesn't change Maine. He chose, stood in evil's way, paid with life. That's real feat, no discounts. Remember him. After speeches, Marina approached, stood at plaque, looked at inscription. Defending from marauder, she read. Didn't write from whom exactly. No need, answered Thomas. Important not killer's name, important hero's name. Grandfather was marauder. Was. But you're not him. You're separate person, own fate. Easy to say. Thomas nodded. But possible. I know. From where? I carried load too, different but heavy. Alcoholism, fall. Thought impossible to rise. Turned out possible. Marina looked at him long, attentively. You're strong man. No. Just stubborn. Painting handed to Russian museum solemnly, official, with protocols, documents. Portrait of unknown woman in blue returned home after 82 years. Thomas present at ceremony, stood in hall, watched as painting hung on wall. Woman in blue smiled, same smile, same eyes. Survived war, siege, oblivion, returned. Art immortal. After ceremony, museum director approached Thomas. Thomas Grant, a minute? Yes. I have proposal. What? Your restorer. Former. Former long. Hands remember? Remember. Then come to us. Consultant, expert. Need such people. Thomas froze. Serious? Absolutely. We checked your bio. Hermitage, 20 years experience. That doesn't forget. I'm 66. And? We have specialists over 70. Age no hindrance. Thomas stuttered. I'll think. Think, but not long. We need you. Evening, sat at Robert's, told about proposal. And what decided? Asked Robert. Don't know. Scary. Of what? Not cope, let down, embarrass. Nonsense. Robert waved hand. You're professional. That doesn't go. 15 years at dump and what? Recognized painting, determined Rokotov. Recognized. So hands remember, eyes see. Rest will follow. Thomas thought all night about great-grandfather who gave life for art, about himself who betrayed profession, about chance not given to everyone. 66 late? Early? Great-grandfather at 41 stood in killer's way, didn't think late or early, just stood. Maybe that's answer. Don't think, just do. Morning, called museum. This grant. I agree. Excellent. When can start? Even today. Come, waiting. First day nervous. White coat, gloves, work table, tools, all familiar, native. And paintings needing help, waiting restoration. Hands trembled at first, then calmed, remembered movements, techniques. By evening, felt in place, as if no 15 years, as if returned home. Quit dump, gathered things, not much, all in one bag. Said goodbye to boss, colleagues. Where you going, Tom? They asked. To museum, restorer. Joking? Serious. Looked like it madman. Watchman from dump to museum. Thomas didn't explain. What's the point? Life strange thing, sometimes gives second chance. Maine, don't miss. Rented room nearby, small and communal, but clean, warm. After dump hut, luxury. Salary small but enough. Food, clothes, books. More not needed. 300,000 from Marina gave to fund, museum restoration fund. Money for recovering paintings. Sure. They asked. Sure. That's right. With his money, restored 3 canvases, small, unknown, but saved. Thomas looked at them in hall, proud quietly to himself. That's his contribution to art, to memory. Marina came sometimes from Moscow on weekends. Met at museum by painting. How is she? Asked Marina. Good. Looks at visitors, smiles. Beautiful very. Stood side by side. Victim's descendant and killer's descendant. Silent, peaceful. History didn't divide them, on contrary, bound. Strange but right. You know, said Marina once, I'm grateful to you. For what? For not embittering, not hating me, my family. Why hate? You're not guilty. Many would hate, transfer to children, grandchildren. Many yes. I know. Why? Thomas thought. Because hate destroys who hates. I was destroyed already by alcohol, despair. Don't want again. And what instead of hate? Memory, justice, work. That's enough. Spring came early, March, sun, drip. St. Petersburg reviving after winter. Thomas walked to work through Palace Square, past Hermitage. City native, beloved, which he once abandoned, now returned forever. At museum entrance, stopped, looked at building. Majestic, beautiful. Here his place, here his fate. Great-grandfather died for art, he will live for it. That's right, that's honest. Half-year passed. Thomas worked every day at museum among paintings. Hands recalled all movements, techniques, secrets of craft. As if no 15 years at dump. Colleagues accepted. First wary, distrustful, then with respect. Grant professional, they said in smoking room. Old school, few like that left. Thomas heard, didn't show, just worked. First big job. Portrait of unknown, 18th century, oil. Damages serious. Cracks, flaking, darkened varnish. Thomas took on, 3 months meticulous work, millimeter by millimeter. End result. Portrait shown. Young man in wig looked at world with clear eyes. Excellent work, praised director. You're good. Thanks. Is there more serious assignment? What? Portrait of unknown woman in blue. Rokotov. That one? You're fined. I know. That's why offer. Who better than me? Working on great-grandfather's painting strange feeling. Thomas approached carefully, with awe, like to living person. Woman in blue looked at him, smiled softly, mysteriously. Hello, said Thomas quietly. Here we meet again. Painting silent but as if heard. Restoration took 4 months. Removing overpaint of that landscape Fletcher hit original with, strengthening paint layer, cleaning, toning, varnishing. Thomas worked slowly, gently, every day few hours. Talked to painting aloud when no one around. Be patient, soon you'll be like new, beautiful, clean. Colleagues noticed, smiled, didn't judge. Restorers have quirks. And done. Painting on easel in workshop, shining, alive. Woman in blue looked at Thomas, smiled gratefully, warmly. Well, he said, now forever. No one will hide again. Called colleagues to see. They gasped. Masterpiece, real masterpiece. Rokotov genius. And you too, Grant. Thomas embarrassed, brushed off, but happy. First time in many years, truly happy. Painting exhibited in hall solemnly with ceremony. Journalists, cameras, speeches. Portrait of unknown woman in blue returned forever. Thomas stood aside, looked at painting, at people. Robert approached, patted shoulder. Congrats. With what? With victory. You did it. We did together. No, you. Found, dug, returned. Without you, nothing. Thomas silent, looked at woman in blue. It's great-grandfather, he said quietly. He died for her. I just finished his work. After ceremony, banquet. Champagne, snacks, talks. Thomas in corner with water glass. Woman approached, unfamiliar, elderly, about 70, gray, with lively eyes. You Grant, Thomas Grant? Yes. I'm Vera Nichols, art historian. Wanted to talk. About what? About painting, about woman in portrait. You know something? Know or guess. Sat aside in quiet corner. Vera Nichols told. I study Rokotov 40 years. His portraits, his models. Unknown in blue always interested. Why? Because she's not quite unknown. There's version who she is. Who? Princess Volkonskaya, Maria Nikolaevna, lady-in-waiting to Empress. Thomas listened attentively. Where such version? Comparative analysis, other portraits of era, family records. Not proven but likely. And what happened to her? Died young, at 23, from consumption. Sad. Yes, but remained in portrait forever. Vera Nichols paused. You know what's else interesting? What? She was betrothed, engaged to guards officer. Wedding didn't happen, she died month before. Tragedy. Yes. Officer never married after, kept her portrait to end of life. This one? Possibly copy or original. Don't know for sure. Thomas looked at painting across hall. Young woman, 23 years, love, hopes, plans, and death early, unfair. But portrait remained, survived centuries, wars, betrayal. Art immortal. Evening, call from Marina. Saw on TV. Congrats. Thanks. Painting beautiful. Now see why grandfather stole it. Doesn't justify him. No, but explains. Beauty drives mad. Beauty not guilty. Guilty man who kills for it. Marina silent. You're right, she said finally. As always. Come see. We'll come next week. If not against. Not against. We'll be glad. Marina came Saturday. Met at museum by painting. Stood side by side silent long. Beautiful, said Marina. Very. Yes. Looks like someone. Can't figure who. Thomas looked at her attentively. On you. What? Looks like you. Face, eyes. Marina, embarrassed, laughed. Nonsense. No, truth. Look carefully. Marina looked long, motionless. Maybe? She said finally. Maybe looks like. Irony of fate. What irony? Grandfather stole painting, killed man, and granddaughter looks like woman from portrait. As if she returned to remind. Marina didn't answer, just looked at painting, at woman who smiled through centuries. After museum, walked city. Nevsky, palace, embankments. St. Petersburg golden in sunset sun. I thought about your great-grandfather, said Marina. And what thought? He was brave man. Stand in killer's way in siege, in hunger, when each for self. He believed in art more than survival. You're same. Thomas thought. Don't know. Before thought no, that I'm weak, worthless. Now not sure. Maybe something inside. There is. Marina smiled. I see. Stopped at bronze horseman. Peter flew on horse, trampling snake. You know, said Marina, I want to do something. What? Write book about grandfather, about your great-grandfather, about painting. Why? So remember, so know truth. Not only official, living, human. That's hard. Write about own grandfather killer. Hard but need. For me, for cleansing. Thomas looked at her with respect. Help? How? Materials, documents, memories. You agree? Agree. Truth should be full, from all sides. Work together. Marina came from Moscow every 2 weeks, gathered materials, recorded interviews. Thomas told about great-grandfather what knew from father, from grandmother. He was kind man, father said. Never raised voice, even at children. And about war anything known? Little. He died first siege winter. Father then 10, remembers vaguely. What remembers? That great-grandfather came home tired, hungry, but always smiled, said. Painting's more important than bread, painting's more important than bread. Yes, said so. Marina wrote attentively, neatly. And your grandfather? Asked Thomas. What known about him? Less. He didn't like telling about war. Silent. Completely? Once I asked directly. I was about 15. Grandpa, how did you survive siege? He paled, stood, left. Didn't ask more. He knew what you know? No. Then no one knew. It all came out after your find. Found more witnesses. Granddaughter of nurse who worked in siege hospital. Her grandma treated Fletcher Winter 42. Grandma told, said woman, strange patient. Dystrophy like all, but nights didn't sleep, screamed in sleep. What screamed? Forgive me, forgive. Grandma thought. Delirium, hunger psychosis. Now understand, he repented maybe in his way. In sleep repented, in wake silent. Found nephew of another museum employee who worked with great-grandfather and Fletcher. Died spring 42. Uncle told father, said man. Shortly before death, that Grant suspected Fletcher of theft. Suspected? Yes. Noticed small things disappearing from museum. Silver, porcelain. Watched Fletcher. And caught probably. Uncle said. Grant going to sort it out day before death. Sort it out, yes, in his way. Materials gathered a lot. Marina wrote every evening after work, chapter by chapter. Showed Thomas, he read, corrected, added. Write well, he said. Truth? Truth. Alive, honest. Scary to publish. About own grandfather such. Scary but right. Book called Portrait in Blue. Subtitle. Story of one crime and one feat. Publisher found fast, story loud, resonant. Presentation set for fall at museum by painting. Thomas worried not for self, for Marina. How for her stand before people, tell about grandfather killer. Sure? He asked. Sure. Will be unpleasant questions. Will be. I'm ready. Why you need this? Marina silent, thought. Because otherwise can't. Silence makes participant. Grandfather silent 60 years, died with load. I don't want so. You're brave. No. Just understand. Truth freeze, even terrible. Presentation passed in October. Hall full. Journalists, historians, readers. Marina spoke first, calm, firm. This book about my grandfather who was thief and killer, and about man he killed who was hero. I long thought worth writing, airing family shame. Then understood. Shame in silence, not in truth. My grandfather committed crime. I can't change, but can admit publicly, honestly. That's all in my power. Hall listened silent, attentively. Then applause long, respectful. Thomas spoke second. My great-grandfather died 82 years ago. Family thought from bomb, turned out from traitor's hand. But that doesn't change Maine. He stood in evil's way, said no, paid with life. That small feat, unnoticed but real. Such feats thousands in siege, in war. We remember soldier heroes but forget guardian heroes who saved art with life. This book memory to them, to all who didn't betray. After presentation, people approached, thanked, shook hands. Thanks for truth. Thanks for memory. Thanks for courage. Thomas nodded, embarrassed, not used to thanks. Marina stood nearby, also embarrassed, happy. We did it, she said. Did. Together. Together. Evening sat in cafe together at corner table. Tired but content. You know, said Marina, I'm glad you found painting. Why? Because otherwise wouldn't meet, wouldn't know truth, wouldn't write book. Strange way to meet. Strange but ours. Thomas smiled. Yes, ours. Marina looked at him long, attentively. Can ask? Ask. You happy now? Thomas thought. Yes, he said finally. Probably yes. Why probably? Because unused to happiness, forgot how it feels. And now remembered? Remembering gradually. Marina smiled. I too remembering. That night, Thomas didn't sleep, lay next to Marina. No, wait, this part seems to evolve later. Wait, in this point, they are not yet together. But continuing. 3 years passed. Thomas marked 70th birthday. Round date, serious. Celebrated home in narrow circle. Robert with wife, few colleagues from museum, and Marina nearby as always. To the birthday man, raised glass Robert. To man who proved never too late. To Thomas Grant, to you, Tom. Thomas embarrassed. Thanks. Not used to attention but pleasant. 70 years, once seemed impossible figure, now here. After guests, remained together, sat on balcony, looked at city. White nights, light, warm. Happy? Asked Marina. Yes. What else want? Thomas thought. Nothing. All there. Work, home, you. More not needed. Altogether nothing? He smiled. Well, maybe 10 or 20 more years. Greedy. What I am. Summer wedding quiet, modest. At registry on English embankment. Witnesses Robert and wife. Guests dozen people. Marina in light dress with flowers in hands, beautiful to tears. Do you agree? Yes. Yes. Ring simple gold, no stones, no ornaments. Declare you husband and wife. Kiss long, tender under guests' applause. After registry, walked city together hand in hand. Nevsky, palace, hermitage. Strange, said Marina. What strange? Me 56, you 70, and we're newlyweds. Age not main. What main? Feeling, desire to be together. Philosopher. What I am. Stopped at Russian museum, looked at building majestic, white. Go in? Suggested Thomas. Why? Show something. Went in through service entrance. Thomas led through halls to familiar painting. Portrait of unknown woman in blue. Woman looked at them, smiled as always. Here, said Thomas. Wanted to introduce. To who? To her. She brought us together. Let her see result. Marina laughed. You're crazy. A bit. Thomas turned to painting. Look, beauty, we married thanks to you. Woman in blue silent but as if smiled wider. Life flowed calm. Work, home, evenings together. Ordinary life of ordinary people but not quite ordinary, with history that bound them. Thomas continued work. Restoration, consultations. Hands held, eyes saw clear. 70 years no hindrance. How much more work? Colleagues asked. While hands hold. Then see. Marina wrote. Second book out successfully, started third on artists' fates in war. Not tired? Asked Thomas. No. This mine. What yours? Tell stories, preserve memory. Like you paintings. Yes, like me paintings. Winter anniversary. 5 years from day Thomas found painting at dump. At museum organized exhibition returned masterpieces. Story of paintings considered lost and found. Portrait of unknown woman in blue in center, nearby stand. Photos, documents, find story, crime story, and great-grandfather's photo. Michael Grant, museum director, died defending art. At opening lots of people. Journalists, art historians, officials. Robert with speech, museum director with thanks. Thomas aside looked at painting, at people. Marina nearby held hand. How you? She asked. Good. Strange but good. Why strange? Because started there at dump with garbage, ended here at museum with exhibition. Not ended. What not ended? Continues while we live. After opening, young man approached, about 25, student by look. You Grant, Thomas Grant? Yes. I'm Mike, art history student. Writing thesis on your great-grandfather. On great-grandfather? Yes, on museum workers in siege. He's one main heroes. Thomas surprised. Where learned? From your book and archives. Grant left records. Diary, letters. Diary? Yes, found in museum storerooms recently, digitized. Thomas didn't know. Can see? Of course, I'll send link. Great-grandfather's diary. Read all night. Entries from September 41 to January 42. Last months of life. September 3rd, war. Didn't manage to evacuate collection. Will store here at any cost. October 15th. Bombings every night. Hide paintings in basement. Fletcher helps, diligent but slippery somehow. November 28th. Hunger, ration 100 grams bread. But paintings intact, that's main. December 12th. Noticed small silver statuette missing. Asked Fletcher, denies. Will watch. January 3rd. Fletcher stealing for sure. Saw hiding something in bag. Need to stop. January 10th. Talked to Fletcher straight, open. He scared, lied. I said. Return all or report. Gave 3 days. January 13th. Tomorrow talk again. If not return, go to police. Paintings people's heritage, won't allow steal. On that entries broke off. January 14th great-grandfather died. Thomas sat over diary, hands shaking. Great-grandfather knew, guessed, wanted to stop. Gave Fletcher chance 3 days, but he didn't wait, solved problem. All confirmed documentally. Morning showed Marina. She read silent, paled with each page. God, she said finally. He knew. Knew and wanted to stop. Yes. Gave Fletcher chance 3 days, but he didn't wait. Marina closed eyes. My grandfather not just thief, he coward. Killed man who gave him chance. Yes, coward and scoundrel. And lived 60 years with that. Lived somehow. Diary handed to archive with comments, explanations. Another document in crime case. Journalists wrote articles, reports. New details of siege murder. Story didn't quiet, continued to live. Winter Thomas ill. Cold then pneumonia. Lay 3 weeks. Marina cared, didn't leave step. Get well, she said. Need you. Trying. Try better. Recovered by spring but weakness remained. 70 not joke. Maybe quit, suggested Marina. Rest. No. Work holds. Without it surrender completely. Then at least lighter. Agreed, switched to half-time. 3 days a week instead of 5. Consultations, expertise, no heavy restoration. Colleagues understood. Grant legend, let work as much as wants. His experience priceless. Young have what to learn. Thomas taught, showed, explained, past knowledge accumulated over decades. Maine, patience, he said to students. Painting not hurry, you don't hurry. And if not work, means not yet time. Wait, will come. Spring again by painting. Every year on find anniversary, tradition. Stood together, looked at woman in blue. 6 years, said Thomas. Yes. Fast and slow. Lots happened. Lots. Marina took his hand. But good more. Much more. Woman on portrait smiled, same smile through centuries, mysterious, soft. Think, asked Marina, she knows what happened because of her? Don't know. Maybe knows. Maybe doesn't care. Seems to me knows and glad. Why glad? Because returned home after so many years. Thomas looked at painting. Beautiful woman. 260 years ago she alive, laughed, cried, loved. Then died. But portrait remained, survived centuries, wars, revolutions, betrayal, dump, return. Art immortal. People know, but art yes. You know, said Thomas, I'm grateful. To who? To all. Great-grandfather for example, painting for meeting, you for love. And to self. To self? Yes. For not passing by, not throwing out, looking carefully. Thomas thought. Maybe to self a bit. Not a bit. A lot. Without you nothing would be. Without painting too. Painting wouldn't find itself. You found. Left museum to street. St. Petersburg bloomed, greened, spring in full. Walked embankment past canals. Where now? Asked Marina. Home. Where else? Home, that's good. Yes. Home, that's best. Home sat on balcony. Tea, cookies, sunset over roofs. Happy? Asked Marina. Yes. Despite. Despite what? Despite all. Past, illnesses, age. Despite or thanks? Thomas smiled. Even thanks. Thanks yes. Without past no present. Without pain no joy. All connected. Philosopher. What I am. Marina laid head on his shoulder. Sat silent, warm, calm. Thanks, said Thomas. For what? For being, for coming, for staying. I'm not going anywhere. No. But still thanks. That night didn't sleep, lay next to Marina, listened her breathing, thought of life, of what was and what will be. 71 years. How many more? 5, 10, 20? Not important. Main how to live. With love, with memory, with gratitude. That's all needed. Morning woke early, went to balcony to see dawn. City waking, lights fading, sky lightening. Beautiful, peaceful. Thanks great-grandfather, said Thomas quietly. For all. Wind rustled curtains, somewhere far bells rang, and Thomas smiled. Life continued, and that was good. And so ends the story of Watchman Thomas Grant, the man who found at the dump a painting by the great Rokotov and uncovered a crime 80 years old. His great-grandfather died defending art from a marauder. For 80 years the family didn't know the truth. The killer lived a long life surrounded by honor. But the truth came out thanks to chance, thanks to the painting at the dump, thanks to the man who didn't pass by. This is a story reminder that truth doesn't die, that justice comes, that love is possible at any age. No need for feats, no need for medals, just look carefully, just don't pass by. A painting at the dump changed lives. And what will change yours? Like the story? Like, subscribe to the channel. Write in comments from what city you are and how old you are. Do you believe in fate? Were there finds in your life that changed everything? Ahead, new stories even more captivating, even more unexpected. Don't miss.